everyone, and welcome back to the KAPPTOR Connection Conference number 3, day 3. My goodness, Alejandro, what a conference it's been. It's been a phenomenal 2 days.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it was absolutely off the charts, Jay. And what a great I said it right at the beginning, you know. I mean, the conference began and we had already 2 days, and now we are on day three, and pretty soon it's just gonna be all over. I mean, so where's the time gone? But I can tell you, I mean, we had a spectacular day one with great
Yeah.
presentations, great speakers. And yesterday, we had a fantastic day. And we
Mm-hmm.
started with, if you remember, with our dear Dr. Rob McLelland. Oh, wow. And
Powerhouse.
yes, if you, I mean, if you did not hear Dr. Rob's presentation, I tell you, one one thing he started saying, "I am never down. I am always
Mm-hmm.
up or getting up."
That's it. Yeah.
Are you
And his
now?
word, his word is onward. Always going forward.
That, that
Never
that's right.
stagnating. Very good.
That's exactly right. Now, let me ask you on this third day of the Captor Conference,
Yeah.
where are you? Are you down on the ground, or are you up or getting up? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the question. And then he talked about um, three elements, for,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, great leadership, great disruptive leadership. And the first one, you would never know, because you said, I mean, well, leadership, I mean, is, well, having a good vision,
Mm-hmm.
having a clear mind, um, uh, being disciplined, all these things. But that is not it. What Dr. Rob said, the first ingredient, the first very important ingredient is forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness.
Very important. Yeah.
Forgive, I mean, not only, I mean, just forgive others, and clear that, because once you forgive other people, whatever wrongs, I mean, they have done, you is like you get free. I mean, you break the chains, and you break the bones that keep you in that unforgiving spirit. So it just releases all that. And even more important, forgive yourself. So many people, they are so good at forgiving others, okay, and that's good, but are you forgiving yourself? Do you keep grudges against yourself for, perhaps, I mean, not doing what you are supposed to be doing? I mean, not whatever the situation is, are you forgiving yourself? And then, the other one is, you have to own your stuff. Execution, the power of execution, not just thinking about it, but executing on what you are thinking about. And then the third
Yes.
one is
Taking
being,
action.
yes, and is being decisive. Being decisive, not thinking about it, and then park your life on the thinking about it, but being decisive. Take decisions. I thought that his presentation, Jay, was absolutely, I mean, fabulous. It spoke to me. It spoke to my heart, and I'm going to implement, I mean, the things that he said.
Absolutely. And I mean, he has had such an exceptional leadership journey. really reached the highest heights. He's a phenomenal person. I met him last year through the online space, and I interviewed him, and we had a lovely time together. Going to visit him and his beautiful wife in the States when I go over. And you know what I love about him is he has taken those leadership principles that he's learned, and he really assists other leaders to get rid of that space where they feel that they are in a rut, that they have these internal barriers that are keeping them behind, keeping them in the same place. Because you mentioned that statistics say that most of us, our entrepreneurship, maybe our leadership skills, they kind of plateau between 40 and 50. Out of that space, and he assists them to go forward. And love the 3 points, absolutely loved it. Forgiveness is at the order of the day. It's a daily thing. Executing those plans that we have to bring us closer to our goal, and then of course just being decisive. And what I loved what he said, and I think that's very, very wise as well, is that it's better to make a wrong decision than not to make a decision at all. And I mentioned
Ah,
in the last few days that if you're an entrepreneur, you are a risk taker. So sometimes you have difficult decisions to make. Just make them. If you miss it and you make a wrong mistake, like Jared Barto also touched on in his presentation, it's okay. You can go back and you can fix it. And that kind of brings a kind of peace of mind to say, you know what, I'm not the only one out there that has difficult decisions to make. But let me rather make one than just ponder on it while the rest of the world excels. So absolutely loved his presentation. Then we had David Vrablik from the New Beginnings Motivation Community. I'm on the team there. A wonderful new movement. It was enlightening to see that he's visiting Michael Faber in Delaware. We know Michael Faber because you and I, Alejandro, we met him and his team during that one event that we attended in New Jersey. That was a lovely
yeah,
event as well. So it was
yeah,
good to see him on the go. He also launched his new book recently, and the New Beginnings Motivation Community is doing very well. And he touched on a lot of points as well, faith. And what did he also talk about? Talked about forgiveness, because his
that's right.
brother passed away at a very it was a very, very detrimental time for him in his life. He was very close with his brother. His brother Joey was a mentor to him in his life. And coincidentally, Michael Faber's brother also passed away, and his name was also Joey. So I'm so wonderful
Yeah,
to see that the leaders out there are reaching out to each other, supporting each other in the ventures that they undertake, and that they are working together, because two is always better than one, and having more opinions is always better than trying to do something by your lonesome self. Reach out to people and ask their advice on certain things, because they might just have the answer that you're looking for. They might just know which dots to connect for you.
yeah, exactly. And another thing that David said is, don't wait for tomorrow. Not
Mm,
waiting for tomorrow. I mean, if you want to do something, if you're going to take action on something, don't wait until tomorrow. Do it now. Do it today.
mm.
Okay? Because if you don't do it today and you get into that procrastination kind of a wheel, then things never happen. Okay? The longer, and John Maxwell says it, the longer that you wait until you make a decision,
Yeah.
you will never make it. um, and so if you have an idea, if you are going to do something, then boom, do it today. Okay, don't wait. Just begin the journey of gathering momentum. Okay.
Mm.
And so that was great. I mean, to hear. I mean, I heard David for the very first time yesterday, and it was very insightful, very, very
Yeah.
powerful. And so then
Yes,
after,
and yeah, I wanted to show you something. I don't know if you remember our very first KAPPTOR conference.
yeah,
Um, I talked about the hot air balloon. Do you remember that? I just noticed that I chose my hot air balloon mug this morning as I was taking a sip.
yes,
I talked about forgiveness. When you don't forgive people, it's like these sacks of sand that's on your hot air balloon and it weighs you down. This is the very first conference 1 year ago. It
Yeah,
weighs you down. But the moment you start forgiving people, and I still used you as an example. I said, because you like bright colors, right? You like oranges and
that's
yellows.
right.
And I said, what if you have this wonderful, vibrant, bright colored air balloon, but you have all these bags of sand on it because of unforgiveness? If you start snipping those off, you can only place you can go is higher, right? So the wind can
That's
take you
right.
to your destination. So just to reminisce on that, I just thought about that. But then we had Jared Barto, and my
Yes.
goodness, he is exceptional in the marketing space, marketing online space, funnels. And you know what I love about Jared, and that's why he just had to be on the team. That exuberance that he displays, that passion, that energy, that excitement every single time I speak to him, or we speak to him, or have him online, or I see him online. I just see that excitement, and that just carries over into his work. It carries over into what he helps people out there with. And what I love of what he does is he not only helps people to get new clients, because most 80% of people want those new leads. They want those new leads, new clients, new connections. But he also assists them to keep the ones that they have. How can you build if you're not looking at that foundation, really? So very, very important presentation that he gave as well. If you were not in attendance for his session, make sure to go back to the lives and re-watch. Make sure you do that, because he gave so many golden nuggets. Jared is absolutely phenomenal. He also gave a link where you can go and where he can set up a call with you. So Jared, you really did so well. I love the shirt. I touched upon the shirt factor yesterday. The shirt said, follow Jared's instructions. And on the back it says, that's how you win. So I encourage the audience, go back, watch his session, follow his instructions, and you are going to win.
Excellent, excellent. I mean, that was a great message for a
Yeah,
T-shirt.
yeah,
Yes, follow
yes.
Jared's instructions, and you will win that way. Oh my goodness! And then yeah, okay. He talked about the three foundations on
Yeah.
how to help people get new clients and keeping them, maintaining them. And those three foundations are three very important words. The first one is who. Who?
Oh, ooh,
That's right. Who are you going to be reaching out? I mean, who is your client? Okay, who is your client? And then what? What are you going to be doing with your client? What are you going to be talking to your client about? And then the third one is how. How are you
uh-huh.
going to do it? How are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And he says that the he said something very important, and is, I mean, when you're in person, um, the way that you connect with people, is very important. Your gestures, I mean, the way that you show up, I mean, all that is important. But in online, I mean, virtually, some people say that's not important because that doesn't come across. Well, yes, it does come across. I mean, when you send an email, when you make a post, I mean, when you share something, the tonality of that, the even the emojis that I
Yes.
mean that you send or you include, everything has a particular place. And if you want your message, I mean, to resonate, then you have to know the how are you going to
Yes.
do it. I mean, is it in alignment with who you are, or is it completely different? So that was very important.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we had the one and only J.R. Spear, my very, very good friend. I am a very, very happy member at the Business Leaders Network, BLN. I also attended one of their executive summits last year. No, it was this year. My goodness, it feels like so long ago. And it was just such an incredible, incredible time. You know, I learned so much. I rubbed shoulders with so many phenomenal entrepreneurs. Matthew Brackett, who is our first speaker today, he was also in attendance there. I believe Matthew and I did a live together. I know Gordon Brodecki was there. He and I did a live together. Shout out to Nate Sala and Huey Scott, all the beautiful people. And JR spoke about preparing for the ambush in your business and also how to really get involved where you can start getting better leads, where you can build out your business and really get to the place where you want to be. And I remember saying that, you know, the BLN is such an amazing group. It's not only the CEO and founder of the BLN, but it's also the CEO and founder of the Creed Consulting Group. And I just love the trust and the communication and the accountability, you know, the fact that there's common goals. And what I wrote down on my notes yesterday was that we need to serve first and ask later. And I love
Oh,
that
yeah.
because I tell the audience when I do business, I first bless someone with something free. Whether it is a gift or whether it's a session with me or whether it's a mentoring document, you know, PDF, I always bless people first with a product before we start building a beautiful relationship. And then if down the line there is something that we can collaborate on, that's when the asking phase comes, or when the collaboration phase comes, where we really connect. Now, I know he talked about form, and that's an acronym for family. So when you connect with someone in that room, let's say you're going to one of the events like Alejandro and I went, or to the BLN event where Matthew and I and Gordon and I were. Talk about work on your connecting skills, work on your networking skills, and always be sincere when you do that. That's something very important that I want to mention. Be sincere. Talk to someone about their family. Ask them, you know, where does your family reside? What is your family? How many members does it consist of? And talk to them like you are talking to someone that's very important to you, because you know what? Every single person that we meet is important. Every
Yeah.
single person that we connect with, they are beautiful human beings, and they are special. And then the O in form was for occupation. Elaborate on what you do and elaborate on what that person does. What is it that is part of their occupation? Then recreation. What do they like to do? What are their interests? And then message. Hear the message that they are talking to you about and give your own message. I'm Juanita from South Africa. I'm a public speaker. I'm an author. I do spiritual counseling. Maybe we talk about martial arts. I know that's something that JR and I have in common. He grew up in the dojo. His mom was a martial artist and she taught him so much. I know he's teaching his beautiful sons martial arts as well. So, what is your form when you go into an event, when you go into a summit? What is the form going to be about? And remember, that energy that you carry with you, that presence is very, very important. Make sure you keep the energy high. Make sure you bring the upliftment. Make sure you make it a positive space, because it's just so much more joyous and fun when you do that. Don't go into a conference and, oh, you're not feeling well today, or oh, you don't feel like talking to people. That's not the purpose of meeting like that. And I tell you, there's people out there that go in with high energy. There's people that go in with a beautiful personality. Sorry. And they lift others. And that's so important.
Of course, yes. And when you talked about J.R. Spear, what resonated with me also, apart from engaging in conversation using the form strategy, is there were, I mean, three questions that he asked, I mean, regarding, I mean, business. Are you fully committed to yourself and to your business? Are you sacrificing? Because if you want to get success in business, there's a price that everybody needs to pay. I mean, it's not free. I mean, there's a price, and it may not necessarily be a dollar price. I mean, but it could be a price in the time, a commitment that you need, in the relationship that you may have, and so forth. So there may be other the prices. So are you not only committed to doing the work in a serious kind of way, but are you sacrificing? And then the third one is, are you treating your business as a business? You see, if
Yes.
you start, you see, entrepreneurs, they treat their business as a business, because that's what it
Yeah,
is. It's a business. I mean,
that's it.
you may have a hobby on the side, but your business is not a hobby. It's a
No.
business.
Yeah. It's like having a child in your own home.
That,
It's your
that
baby. Yeah.
that's
You
right.
need to give it
That's right.
attention. Absolutely. Not just when
That's
you
right.
feel like
And
it, every single day.
that's right. That's right. And then the I mean, the last thing is that he says, with every interaction that he has, one-on-one interactions, then his mindset there is, what can I give them, or what can I do to add value to that person?
Yeah.
Is always having that mentality of enhancing the other person's experience, and that was very important. So
I agree. I agree. I'm looking forward to today's list of speakers as well. I know we're going to learn so much through their presentations. We've got Matthew Brackett, we've got Laura White, Stacey McPherson, Jonathan Ellis. We're also going to do a session, Alejandro, you and I. And these are
yeah,
really just amazing people that I've been blessed to meet on my journey and learning so many lessons often. And that's a good thing.
sure.
We never stop learning and growing, right? We always need to
Yeah.
develop personally and professionally. I love that.
And the other person that it was my very first time to listen to him in a presentation was a great
Mm.
guy. I mean, you know him, Freeman Beals. Freeman Beals. I mean, my goodness. I mean, what? Do you remember the 3-2-1-0
Yes,
method?
I wrote it down. I do. I'm going to have to apply that because I'm guilty of all of those. I'll read it to you. The three is referring to no food 3 hours before bed. The two is no creative thoughts or no creative actions 2 hours before bed. One is no screen, like laptop, phone, television, 1 hour before bed. And zero is don't hit the snooze button. Now, I wasn't guilty of 3, 2, or 1 yesterday, but I did hit my snooze button this morning.
Well, thank you for your honesty and transparency.
Yeah, Freeman is awesome. I mean, he's a top expert in his field. What did you enjoy about his
Yeah.
presentation?
Oh my goodness! I mean, he talked about stress, and I mean, one of the things that I liked. I mean, one of his suggestions is to write. If you journal, and I
Yeah,
encourage everyone, I mean, to journal, because it's a great way, I mean, to reflect on things and to put things
yeah,
on paper. And he says, write 3 good positive things that happen to you every day, and write them down. And it
mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be, huge things.
Yeah,
I had a great cup of hot chocolate. Well, write it down. I mean, that was a good thing. You enjoyed it. You got happiness out of that. Well, write it down. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I went for a walk in nature. Yes, and I connected with nature, and I had a nature bath. Okay, write it down. I I met this speaker for the first time, and his presentation or her presentation impacted me in some way. Write it
Yeah.
down. Those are positive things. I mean, just keep that journal. And I said, after 6 months or a year, you can go back, and my goodness, I mean, that lift up your spirit, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember he also said that, when you're trying to put in a new habit in place, start
Yeah,
easy, start with little tweaks, and
yeah,
then be consistent with those. So start a new little habit that's easy for you to do. Be consistent, and then when you find you have that stride, when you're in that in that habit now, then you can start to push your limits to something bigger and bigger, because that way you won't get disheartened if you do it
yeah.
well for 3 days and day 4 you lapse, and then you're back on track on day 5. We don't want to bring that negative energy in. So I liked what he said about that. And then we also had Gabby Abdelka. Gabs. I
Well,
know
hold
Gabby
on. Well,
from
Well,
now.
hold on 1 second, because I just want to say there's another,
Yeah.
when we talk about habit and habit creation.
Yeah.
Robin Sharma, one of my favorite authors. I mean, he
Yeah.
said, when you develop a habit, habits at the very beginning, they are
Mm-hmm.
difficult.
Mm.
In the middle, they are messy, but in the
Yeah.
end they are glorious. So you have to go
Mm.
through those
Mercy.
stages. I mean, difficult at the
Yeah.
beginning, messy in the
Mercy.
middle, but glorious at the end. So that's what
Yeah. Absolutely. And then, of course, our second day ended with Gabby Abdelka, dear. I know Gabby a long time now. I know you know Gabby very well. And she
Yes.
taught about, feng shui. She's a feng shui practitioner. She's a declutter queen. And really the importance, because I talk a lot about energy as well. Keeping your energy clean and recalibrated, recharging that energy. That's why I take nature baths often. I do. I live in between mountains, so I'm basking in nature. I'm even streaming from nature today. So,
Yeah.
but keeping that energy clean and recalibrated, recharging that energy, and that's not just for you, but also for your home, your workspace, your vehicle. It applies to so many instances in our lives. Are you decluttering your home often? Are you making sure that your workspace is clean and that it's neat? What are the things that you're doing to up your energy and make sure that the environment in your home is also positive? So, how do you practice feng shui, Alejandro? I forgot to ask you yesterday.
Well, I have to say, no, I don't. I don't practice feng shui. Maybe I should, but but I tend to keep things. Um, I was not a
Uh-huh.
minimalist, but I have become a minimalist. I mean, and
Okay.
I'm thriving even more into that. I mean, the
Good.
things that I don't need, I get rid of of
Mhm.
them, because yes.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the accumulation of things. I mean, that you don't need, and then they keep piling up and up and up, and no, 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 no. It's it's
Yeah.
just live with the bare minimum that you need in order to live a good life, and that's it.
Mhm.
So, but but the other thing that, I mean, that Gabby said is, declutter your digital
Mm.
environment. That's right. And so,
Yeah.
yes, it's maintaining that uncluttering attitude all the time.
And Alejandro, in a sense, that also becomes a habit. Decluttering your
Yes.
home, decluttering your PC. I know in weeks that I have, a lot going on, a lot of meticulous interviews and meetings and training. Sometimes on the weekend, I have to go sit and declutter my laptop and put certain things on my hard drive, put certain things in the folders they belong. So it has to become a habit, absolutely. And then today, I mean, we're 2 minutes away from introducing our first speaker. So he's in the green room with us. He's with us since the beginning, actually. So he's very punctual, and I guess that's because he was in the Marines. Because punctuality and discipline is a good and a big part of his life. I'm going to read his bio, and then we are going to let him come on screen to do his thing, to give his presentation. So, Matthew Brackett, with more than 30 years of experience in the field of personal, professional, and intercultural leadership development, Matthew is much more than an executive coach. He's the human version of a sophisticated Swiss Army knife. I like that. A consultant, a coach, and confident. Any executive would want in their a confidant, not confident, a confidant. Any executive would want in their corner, meeting high-performing leaders of any sector at the intersection of the personal and professional, so that they project their priorities, lead better, love better, and live better. And that's his tagline: lead better, love better, and live better. He's also a passionate consultant, educator, and speaker about varying elements of the management of the human element in personal, intercultural, and organizational contexts. Matthew has enjoyed broad international and intercultural experiences in leadership, educational, and consulting roles in Italy, Ireland, England, Colombia, Chile, and Mexico, as well as having been a special staff officer and chaplain in the United States Navy, serving both with sailors and Marines. An ICF professional certified coach, Matthew completed specialized graduate degrees in spiritual theology and human development from universities in Rome, Italy, specialized studies in counseling, family, and education at Los Andes University in Chile, and a master's degree, congratulations, in the psychology of leadership from Pennsylvania State University. My goodness, we are in good hands today, Alejandro. Let's bring our special guest on. Welcome, Matthew Brackett.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
It's very, as you read my bio and then I kind of go back over what I want to say, it's difficult. As you were talking about being the clutter queen, right? I have a kind of a clutter in my mind right now about so many things that I would like to share, and hopefully we'll just try to keep it simple to keep the content something that will be useful for the audience. Focusing on, on leading better, loving better, and living better, which is my tagline, which is something I'm very passionate about. Are we ready to roll, or do you have questions or comments for me?
We are ready to roll. I'm going to put the comments that come in onto the screen, but I'm going to take us off and start the presentation. Enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so Matthew Brackett here. What I would like to do is really just share a little bit about myself. Juanita read a little bit about my bio, about what I do, about my background. I think this is a fascinating aspect about my background as far as the international experience that I've been very fortunate and blessed to have. Also about my experience in ministry, being a Catholic priest for 20 years, an active ministry, 10 years of preparation for that, which means a lot of silence, a lot of prayer, a lot of distancing from things of the world to really get into the life of the Spirit. And I suppose when we talk about personal leadership, it was really a lot of work on learning how to lead myself better, even though I wasn't always very good at that. And so that's that's a little bit about my background. Very fortunate, very blessed also to have served with the Marines and sailors, to have served our country and in active duty ministry. And if Juanito will move the slide a little bit more, I just want to share you a little bit about my family. This is what we're going to be talking about: leading better, loving better, and living better. But let's move a little bit more to the next slide. And there we go. So this is always a good icebreaker. I'm the 10th of 13 children. This is a picture that I always like to use of our family because I'm from a small town, New England. This is the fall in New England, which is a beautiful period of time, so you can see all the beautiful leaves. And then there's my parents who have since deceased. And this was obviously at one of my sister's wedding, my youngest sister. And there's the 13 of us. And there's a few aspects about my family life which I think is beautiful to think about is that my parents also adopted 2 children. So I have my 8th and 12th sibling are adopted. I jokingly always say that they adopted they had to outsource to improve the quality of the offspring. And so that's just, I always like to share about my family, the 10th of 13 children. People find that fascinating. And growing up in that space, I think it will help you understand my life. We were taught to be very generous. My parents were very generous people because not only were the doors and the doors of our house and the doors of their hearts open to the 13 children, but also to family, to relatives, to friends, people that were going through difficult moments. We always had other people living with us at different moments, trying to help them get on their feet. Now, our parents taught us generosity from a very early age, and generosity influenced me, I think, in my own decision to go into ministry. I wanted to do something impactful. I wanted to do something meaningful in the world. And so that led me from a very young age to want to serve. And so I went into ministry for those 30 years. And then making that decision to leave ministry is very complex. I really won't get into that today. That's a story for another day. But there's so many interesting lessons there on that journey. So that's the family. And we'll move a little bit to the next stage. These are a few pictures of ministry. And these are more just, people, a lot of people would have known John Paul II. And I was very fortunate to have had a lot of experiences with him, even from a young age. You see me as a child there with my parents, where we were able to meet Pope John Paul II back in the 80s. And then the interesting thing is that I was later able to meet him, to assist him during some liturgies in Rome, to go to the papal apartments on many occasions. So that was very fascinating, 20 years later, to find myself in those same places, but now as a grown man and also as a priest. And anyone who's Catholic understands the importance of the Vatican, the Pope, and all that. And then there's a very interesting picture there of it's a very hard picture, I suppose, to look at if you don't know what it is. But it's the filming of the Passion of the Christ, which I was able to be at, the filming of a bunch of scenes from that, and to be able to really build up a relationship with Mel Gibson, Jim Caviezel, who have not only did that, they've done great films together, and then even recently with The Sound of Freedom that Jim Caviezel has done. Fascinating movies that deal with very difficult topics. But I suppose when we talk about leadership, we talk about the ability to transform. So these are people, when we talk about John Paul II, the things that he did for the world and for society, bringing down communism, we talk about in the world of art. It's really about stepping out of comfort zone and transforming society. And so we have some people there that have made steps in different sectors to transform society. And we can move on to the next slide, Juanita. And then this is just a few quick shots from being able to serve with the Marines and sailors as a chaplain. Fascinating experience. And there's a poem that I wrote as a fruit of that experience, which I gifted to the Marine Corps as I left, which was about the tear of a Marine. Because as a chaplain, you're able to sit in that sacred space of people's lives. And not only as a chaplain, but also in my years of a Catholic priest. But this was it's very intense ministry to really be part of people's lives. I love the diversity of the ministry because, I was at a base of 5,000 Marines and sailors, and where I was the chaplain to everyone. And when we talk about leadership, which is really my focus for today, there's a lot of talk about servant leadership. But in the end, leadership is about serving others. When we are in leadership roles, we are given power. And we can think about just formal positions of power. We are given power, and power is a gift to serve. Power is not something to hold over other people. And that's, I'll mention that's where when leadership gets dysfunctional, when leadership becomes toxic, it's when power is used in inappropriate ways. The fact is, in that part of our human experience our human experience, leadership will always be part of our human experience. The exercise of power will always be part of our human experience. But how can we do it better as human beings? So going back to here, just being able to serve all of my Marines and sailors, to care for them, it's just such a beautiful experience. And in that context, we see, as many organizational contexts, we can see how power can be used for good and power can be used to harm people. And I saw both ends of those spectrums and everything in between. And let me step back as well, and we'll stay on the slide for a second, Juanita, is even in church settings, power can be used for good. And that's, if any faith-based people here, if we look at the Bible, oftentimes, the way Jesus used his power, it was always for good. In faith-based settings, we would expect that people in ministry, people in positions of power in the hierarchy in any faith organization, will use their power for good. And we would expect that in the family setting, people will always use that natural power and position for good. The fact is that it doesn't always happen. And I think when leadership is dysfunctional, when leadership is toxic, when leadership is, if we would say, abusive, in the context of faith and in the context of family, it touches the deeper fibers of the human being. And it becomes very harmful. It's always, the abuse of power is always harmful. But when it's in the context of faith and in the context of family, I think as I said, it touches the deeper fibers of us as human beings, and I think the damage goes a lot deeper. So power is a gift, and it's a gift that we must use with great respect. In these pictures, you see that I'm speaking with a few Marines. When people are in power and in ministry, I was invited into that sacred ground of people's lives. And I think when we talk about leadership, we want to think about that when we are in leadership positions, when we are in a position of power, we are walking on sacred ground, not ground that makes me better, not ground that gives me rights to do certain things to hold my power over people. And we walk on sacred ground, and we must walk on that sacred ground with utmost respect, with utmost care. Just recently, I was giving a workshop to people that do personal accompaniment in a school. They walk with their students as they grow and as they mature. And it's all about helping these students not only grow in their academic life, but also to grow to be much better human beings. And we talked about this. When we personal accompaniment, personal coaching, whatever, spiritual direction, therapy, whatever it is, when we are invited into someone's life, we are invited into a sacred space. And we are invited, in a certain sense, we are invited with someone who has power over them. But we must walk on that sacred ground with utmost respect. Let's move on, Juanita. So we'll focus here. I'll leave this slide up for a second. We're going to start getting into what leadership is. Now, what I would like to talk about, it's almost, I don't want it to be like a class, but we're going to talk about leadership and how I talk about leadership and how I approach it is we talk about leadership in my personal life, how I lead myself personally, how I lead in my inner circles and in my priorities, which will be more in my intimate circles, and then how I lead in professional spaces and positions, and then how we lead in organizational contexts. Now, don't worry, we're not going to get into all of that. I want to lay a little bit of a foundation about what leadership is, because it's a word that everyone talks about, and oftentimes it's talked about so much that it means everything and it means nothing at the same time. So I wanted to clarify what leadership is. I wanted to clarify what dysfunctional or toxic leadership is, okay, and what that looks like. And then concluding with, well, what does healthy and good leadership look like? And then how do we apply that to those different areas of our life? It would be very wave, very tips for the waves type of concepts and talks. We're not going to go too deep into anything. We won't make it too heavy, but it's so important in my view to clarify, what leadership is, what leadership isn't. And we're going to talk about what it means to be a person of influence and how we use power. It's very good. And so if we go to this, when we talk about leadership, it's very simple. Then there's the simplest of definitions is that, as John Maxwell says, that leadership is influence. And later on, we'll talk about what it means to be a person of influence. Now, a little bit more complex, what I would say is a more complete definition of leadership is that leadership is a process. It's a very dynamic process. And when we talk about leadership, we can talk about this triangle of a leader, of followers, and of a context. Leader, followers, and a context. And so the leadership process it's a dynamic process that happens between all of these three elements that play off of each other constantly. And so that's the art of leadership, is how to navigate these three elements in the most appropriate way. And that's why there's all types of leadership theories. And one of them is adaptive leadership. What I think is so important is the art of leadership is how do I adapt my leadership style to this context and to these followers. So it's a very dynamic process between those three elements. So we would say that leadership is a process where an individual has influence over a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. Okay, so very simple. It's someone who has influence over another person or others to achieve a common goal. And so the important elements to consider is that it's a process. In other words, it's not stagnant, it's not static, but rather it's dynamic and it's in constant movement. And the process involves a relationship with others, or with another person, or with other individuals to reach a common goal. Now let's bring this to personal leadership. And I love this because it's something that we don't often think about. The most difficult person, as they say, the most difficult person to lead is oftentimes ourselves. And this process happens within us. And let me explain why. Because I am my own leader in a certain way. I have a vision, I have a mission, I have ideals for myself. And so I am also my follower. And so I am my leader. So there's something in me that draws me, that transcendent nature of the human person that draws me out of myself towards something greater, towards growth. Then there's that part of me that follows or that doesn't follow, right? That conflict that sometimes we have in trying to align with our goals, with our needs, with our ideals, with our beliefs. And then there's context that we always live in, this context. Whether it be personal context, whether it be family context, there's always this individual aspect of leadership where I am my leader, I am my follower, and this is happening in a certain context and how I adapt to that. And then we apply this same principle, the same definition around leadership to inner circles. So if we look at my family, we'll use family because it's the simplest example and it's really the foundational base of society. But we have spouses who lead each other. And we're not saying that it's not a position of one over another, but it's how they influence each other, and hopefully that influence is always positive. But they lead each other to be better. I think something beautiful about married life is that we help each other be better. And if in your married life you're helping each other be worse, well then we're not. That's not the goal. That's not the goal. All right. And then normally, in many cases, spouses have children. Okay, and so it's this process of influence of one over another and over their children. How that influence happens, it's a process, and in the context, whether it be in the family context, the home context, and then the process of the context of growth, of how people grow and mature throughout the ages. And so that leadership in the home, it's so powerful, but it's so important. Leadership in the home, it's it's so dynamic as well, because every child is different. So you might, if you have a few children, everyone sort of works on a different wavelength. And then as they grow it from different ages, they're also different. So we don't have to talk about the art of leadership in the home and how important that is. And I think there's a huge crisis of that, which is reflected in the crisis of our society. People are trying to put their finger on why are we having so many difficulties in society, and we're supposed to be so modern and have advanced in so many ways, but it seems like we haven't. One of the problems, the root causes, I think, is the family, is the home. We've had a breakdown of the family, we've had a breakdown of the home. There's not a lot of stability. And when we think about this, I'm going to do a quick parenthesis here. When we think about two of the most important things that we do as human beings, and I would do this when I would sit down with the Marines, I would say, hey, Marines, what are two of the most important things that you might do as a human being? And that's kind of thinking about, wow, I became a Marine. And then I would also say, when you became a Marine, you had mandatory training. You had to go to boot camp. You had to go to military combat school, MCT. You had to then go to get your specialized training. And anything else you do in your military career or in your professional career, it's expected that you do education or training. And let's bring this back to what I was saying. What are the two most important things that you might do? And then they begin to say, well, I might get married, therefore I'll be in a committed relationship, whether it's marriage or not. But some people that step into a committed relationship, and then some, I'll have children. So yes, so being in a committed relationship and being a parent are some of the two most important things that many human beings will do in their lives. And there's no mandatory training. There's no training or education that is expected for that. And I find that to be confusing for my mind and slightly contradictory for who we are as a human race and what we look for. And that the two most important things that we do, it's not expected. It's expected that we're just supposed to know how to do it and how to do it well. So that's a little food for thought. Now, while there is no mandatory obligatory training for those roles, there's so much that we can do to invest in being a better spouse and being a better parent. We could do marriage retreats. We could do a marriage course. We could prepare better for marriage first and foremost. And then when I talk to married couples, committed couples, I always encourage them, invest intentionally in your relationship every day, even if it's just a small things. Do something intentional that builds relationship. Do something intentional that builds a relationship every week. Do something intentional that builds a relationship every month, and that could be a bit longer. Do something intentional that builds a relationship every year, which could be a special weekend away at a marriage retreat, a marriage workshop, something like that. Something intentional. I remember dealing with an elderly couple on their 60th anniversary of the wedding anniversary, and asked them, what's the secret? What's the secret that made you so successful and to reach 60 years of marriage? And so the husband jokingly said, the secret was our weekly date. I would go out on Tuesday and she would go out on Thursday. I say that in a joking manner. But going back to it, investing intentionally in our relationships. And then how do I parent better? How do I lead better in the home? How do I parent better? There's a lot of great material out there. There's a lot of workshops, there's a lot of courses, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of things that help us. It's hard because time is always, challenging to find the time to do these things. But when we think about the two most important things that we're going to do, how important is that we invest intentionally in preparing ourselves better and in doing that better. So this leadership process happens inside of us. The leader, I am my leader. I am also my follower. That happens in context. That leadership process happens in the home, where we, as spouses, we lead each other. We influence each other and our children to reach a goal. Now, and this is very interesting, what is our goal as a family? What is our goal? You can keep going. There you go, Juanita. You can stop there. What is our goal as a family? What is our goal? What are we looking for? And this is what we call, our family project. It's so important because this is something that families often don't think about. We have our kids, now we just, well, who knows? We'll educate them, they'll grow, and try to make them the best human beings. Okay, but the family growth has stages. But what are our values? What's our belief system? What do we want to look like as a family? Now, I'm trying not to make this too complex. You don't need to go to a whole workshop to figure this out. It's just to clarify, as a couple, what are we looking for our family? What are our values that we're always going to live by and abide by and teach to our kids? What are our principles, our guiding principles? What is our belief system? Right? What are our sort of non-negotiables as a family, and how are we going to educate our kids in that? So, and to have this greater goal, in the end, what do we want our children to be like and look like when they're adults? Now, we can't determine that totally, but we can lay a foundation. And so what do we want that to look like? So we talked about personally, we talked about and then in those intimate circles, whether it be family and friendships. And then leadership happens, as we've already talked about. That whole process of the leader and the followers in the context happens in professional spaces and happens in organizational contexts. So a lot of the work that I do is it's around all of these areas. I work with people in their personal lives. I work with people in their relationships. I work with people who lead in professional spaces and organizational contexts. And what's so interesting is this: I often see this common denominators, which I won't get into too much. But one thing I do want to say is when I talk to senior executives in very large global corporations, or I come across the same things, which is I find interesting, is that people are put in these positions, and oftentimes they're not prepared for those positions. And this goes back to what I was saying about just investing in our own personal development. Right? You would expect that global organizations and organizations with with a lot of wisdom and experience and large amounts of money would prepare their people properly for positions. When we all anyone who goes to colleges or whatever it is, that you focus on technical expertise. So you get very good at an area. But what you're not prepared for is to be very good at leading people. And the higher you go in the ranks and the hierarchy or in the promotion, the higher you go generally, the more people you're going to lead. And those are a lot of people that I work with coaching, is they find themselves in these positions and they have great technical expertise and amazing people. But they're like, no, but now I'm not focusing on my technical expertise. I'm focusing on leading people. And I wasn't prepared for this. And so that's what I do with people is really it's around coaching, all those different aspects of leading themselves and others. And then in those contexts, in the context of professional life and in those organizational contexts, how to navigate organizational contexts. Having been in ministry, having been a priest, and a priest in a religious order, and then a priest in the military, and a priest in the large global organizations, I like to say that I have learned to navigate complex organizations very well. That's partly why I stepped away. I got very tired of organizations, but it's something that I was also very good at, and that's why I work with people in that, because how to lead and navigate in organizational context, and then more importantly, how to make organizational context better, so that our people can be better. That we could talk about culture, but we're not going to go into that too much today. But all of these things are related, and going back to these people is being prepared for positions of authority, and not that being prepared for positions of authority and power, and being prepared for positions to lead people. So I have to invest intentionally in that. And if there's any people out there that have organizations, how are we training our people in order to lead people better? The other thing that I come across is communication. Right? And as human beings, we are relational. So communication is so key. And it's something that we do. And it's something that I'm doing right now. It's something that it's foundational to who we are as human beings and how we live together. But at the same time, it's one of the greatest dysfunctions or the difficulties or challenges of human relationships, whether it be in spouses, whether it be in families, or whether it be in organizational contexts. How people communicate. And I often say to the coachees that I have is the greatest gift that you can give your people is clarity of communication. The greatest gift that you can give your people is clarity of communication. This means I want to give my people clarity of our goals, clarity of our mission, clarity of our vision, clarity of our values, clarity of our beliefs as an organization, and also clarity of expectations, and also clarity of consequences. Give the gift of clarity. And that not only happens outside of us, but let's go back to personal leadership. Give myself the gift of clarity, which doesn't happen from one day to the next. We live our way to clarity. But that communication, that process of communication happens within me. How do I communicate with myself? What's my vision? What's my mission? What are my expectations? What are my goals for myself? What are my values? What are my beliefs? And then aligning with those. So as we can see, all this whole process of leadership happens, it's the same, but it happens in all of these different spaces, with myself, with my intimate circles, in professional contexts, and in organizational contexts. So those two things that I come across is investing intentionally in our growth to be able to do better what we do, leading better, loving better, and living better, and then the ability to communicate. It's so interesting to see, and I've struggled with communication so much, is we dance around a lot of topics because everyone, we want to be respectful, we want to be careful, we don't like conflict, and so we end up dancing around topics, not being clear, and our human mind has a lot of difficulty with lack of clarity because we don't know where we stand. And that's why I go back to when we lead, whether this be in our own lives or in the professional space and in our intimate circles, what is our goal? What are our mission? What's our vision? What are our expectations? What are the consequences when expectations are not met? Right? So there's an aspect of accountability. This helps all of us to know where we stand. And then things happen much more smoothly. So these are just general aspects, kind of go on different tangents there, but leading us back to what leadership is. It's a process, it's a dynamic process of influence someone over others to reach a common goal. And that happens in the personal life, it happens in the family and intimate life, and it happens in professional and organizational spaces. Now, when I talk about leadership, I take this holistic approach, and so there's like 183 definitions of leadership, and I can't. Maybe there's more than that. Maybe there's 383. Anyways, I've added another one, and I want to share that with you as well, because I think that it involves this ability to also lead myself. So when I talk about leadership, I talk about a mutual exchange of being and behaving. A mutual exchange of being who I am and how I behave. So I think there's two things linked to this, because it's not only how we influence is not only related to behaviors, it's related to who I am. So the mutual exchange of being and behaving that definitely influences, but also enables. Now I'm coming at this from a very positive angle. We want to positively influence, and we want to enable others to achieve their personal potential and to reach a common goal. So this isn't only, and think of this as a person in our personal space or in our family space, so we don't only want to reach a common goal altogether, but we want our people to grow in the process. We want our people to be better in the process. What would happen if, as a group, we reach a common goal, but my people haven't necessarily grown in the process? Yes, as an organization, great, we've reached the goal. Wonderful. But have my people grown in the process? So it's this mutual exchange of being and behavior. So when we talk about leadership, it comes back to, who am I first? Who am I as a person? Who do I want to be as a person? Because the way you are, the way you show up, influences your surroundings. I read a cartoon yesterday that said, like these gentlemen that were at a meeting, sort of like a leadership meeting, and the boss says, I tried leading by example for many years, but then I stopped because it became too hard. It took too much energy, took too much effort. But in the end, it's that who it's being, it's who am I? And then it's because of I am who I am, how I behave. So that alignment between who I am and how I behave, that this influences and enables the people around me to achieve their personal potential and to reach a common goal. And when individuals are tending towards their potential, the results are so visible, are so obvious. At a personal level, at a community level, at an organizational level, when my people are better, when my people grow and are better, everything else is better. And we don't always think about this in leadership roles. Oftentimes, as a leadership, we can get fixated on what's our goal, which is important. But what is the goal for my people? What do I want for my people? Not just what do I want for ourselves as an organization. And so we're talking about, internal results and external results. Sure, results that we can measure, but also that I want my people to be better, which we call internal results. But when internal results are better in my own life, when internal results are better in my people's lives, the external results are going to be better. Performance is better, and the bottom line is better. Now, as we look at this, we started talking about leadership as influence, and as we walk down this journey, you could be like, holy smokes, Matthew, you've really complicated a very simple concept. You've made it very complex. Hopefully not, right? Hopefully we've just taken it apart into pieces to better understand the beauty of the concept of leadership, but how it's oftentimes misunderstood, but how important it is to understand the concept and how it plays out in all these different spaces. So if I've complicated a very simple concept for you, well, you can thank me for that. So I want to go to when we step into talking about dysfunctional or toxic leadership. We'll go to the next slide, and I want to share 2 examples with you, real life examples. So, and I know there's a lot of text, so don't worry, I'll read it for you. Okay, but these are 2 people that I've dealt with. Okay, and I want to talk about this is the scenario, just in simple terms. We have a senior manager, okay, and the employees have complained about lack of communication information. The manager is absent from meetings and from the workplace, affecting the ability to make decisions and take action. These absences are not communicated. They sort of just happen. Important information has not been communicated. When the person is not there, we've already seen the small little data that we have here is that the person is not communicating well, right? And then there's absence, and so in that absence, obviously, information is not being communicated, not being transmitted, right? And there's this general sense of lack of availability. And so a question is, if this situation is left untouched and without intervention, what might happen? We're stepping now, we've talked a little bit about leadership, now we're stepping into what we might call dysfunctional leadership. Okay. And when we look at dysfunctional leadership, there's 3 steps to this. There's leader error, which is merely the fact that as human beings, we make mistakes. And leaders will make mistakes. But what happens when a leader makes mistakes? And that's where dysfunction can become the next step. Is that when leaders make mistakes, when they have this lack of awareness, and when there's no feedback, there's a lack of mechanisms where that helps the leader realize that they have made mistakes. There's no maybe accountability mechanisms for that. And so making mistakes can become just a way of being and a way of behaving. And then that's, so leader error not dealt with leads to dysfunctional leadership. Dysfunctional leadership, when not dealt with, can possibly lead to toxic leadership. Not necessarily. Now we use toxic we use it very easily in today's society. So I think we also have to be careful with the use of the word toxic because it has a very specific meaning. Okay, but some dysfunctional leadership, when it's not dealt with, it can become toxic. What do we mean by toxic? We mean that it, just by the word, when something's toxic, it poisons the environment. And so a toxic leader is someone that, through their being and through their behaving, poisons an environment. In a dysfunctional leadership, it's where the leadership process is dysfunctional. It doesn't happen. In other words, where we have a leader that influences followers to achieve a common goal. So it's either the leader is dysfunctional in certain ways, in the way they live their own life or in the way they manage, right? And in this case, we have dysfunction in communication. We have dysfunction in presence. One of the most important things in leadership is to be present. And so then we have dysfunction also around expectations, and we have dysfunction around availability. So dysfunction can happen in the leader. Dysfunction can happen in the followers and their inability to follow. And that's a whole topic for another day. But yes, dysfunction can happen there. Dysfunction can happen in that we're not reaching our goals. So that's how dysfunction can happen in many of those different areas of the leadership process. So here we have an example. The senior manager I'm talking about is where we have dysfunction that, if not dealt with over a period of time, could, but not necessarily, could become toxic. Toxic leadership is a bit more complex, right? It has a lot to do with the personality of the leader, okay, which we won't get too much into today. But there's this thing of intentionality, right? In dysfunctional leadership, oftentimes the leader doesn't want to lead poorly. This is oftentimes lack of awareness. In toxic leadership, really, we're talking about a person who has certain personality disorders, who is very self-centered, and generally is very self-centered and self-serving, and oftentimes has the intention to do harm, whether it be an unconscious intention or conscious intention. Well, those are some slight differences here. Now, I don't want to make this too academic, but let's just step back again. So one of the important elements when we're talking about leadership here, whether it be dysfunctional or functional, is self-awareness. Now I say that, and here's a little quote that Juanita can put up there if she wants to, is self-awareness is one of the greatest leadership assets. The lack of self-awareness is one of the greatest leadership liabilities. When we're self-aware, we can navigate that. We can grow. When we're self-aware, we can get feedback. Pay attention to what's going around us. Where we don't have the self-awareness, there's a lot of blindness. We all have blind spots. But in leadership and in life, we want to minimize the blind spots and the effect of the blind spots. So self-awareness is so important. Okay, and so what we see here in the senior manager, when not dealt with, there's a lot of maybe lack of self-awareness here. She doesn't, I don't mean to say she, it was a female, but she doesn't realize the consequences of her actions or lack of actions. Let's go to this next one, which is very interesting. And this next one could lead a lot more toxicity. And I wanted you to pay attention to some of the manifestations and see how that happens. So this owner and CEO of a digital company are impulsive in her vision and decision making. She corrects and shames employees in public. She takes credit for the success, and when there's problems or blame, she deflects the blame to other people. Her message is one of profit. It's always about money, which can be interpreted by others as being very focused on money and very, very focused on self. on the self-server that I want more money out of this business. She manipulates situations in a manner that proves others wrong, or that they have negative intent, and that she is always right. She does not seem to listen nor ask for advice, even from closest advisors and loyal employees. And this naturally leads to a lack of retention. In other words, a lot of people leave. And that's the common thing in this organization, is that people at lower levels and higher levels leave on a regular basis. And the owner and founder of this organization does that she may be the cause. It's always the people that are leaving were the problem. And so one of those retention things is that 3 senior employees have been dismissed over the last 3 months. Some others have left over the last 6 months. So this constant turnover, which is not good for an organization. But generally, when a toxic leader wants to create this sort of the sense of instability, because when there's instability, a toxic leader can have greater control. And if we were to use examples, there's a lot of, when in countries where there's been dictatorships, where the dictators have generally been, they're toxic people. They have some sort of personality disorders. They end up doing a lot of harm, but they create the sense of instability and constant insecurity so that they can always be in control. We can go to the next slide, Juanita. So I'm talking about, we talk about leadership, but I think it's also important to shed light on, well, what is dysfunctional leadership? What is when leaders make mistakes? What does toxic leadership look like? I'm not going too deep into it. And then we could talk about dysfunctional teams. A lot of you might know Patrick Lencioni in his book about the 5 dysfunctional teams. So when we talk about, just to finish this aspect about dysfunctionality before we go into something else, is in dysfunctions in the team, he highlights 5 aspects of dysfunction in the team. What's very interesting is when there's no trust, when there's a fear of conflict, when there's a lack of commitment, when there's avoidance of accountability, and a lack of attention to results. And this has a lot to do with things that we've already talked about around what leadership is and what it isn't, what dysfunctional leadership is. But we want clarity of communication, and the ability to have difficult conversations. And you want to create an environment where there's trust. So we talked about the dysfunctional team. When we don't trust each other, then we don't feel safe. And we obviously can't, when we don't feel safe, when we can't trust each other, we're not clear. Oftentimes conflict and difficulties are, difficult conversations are not had, conflict is not dealt with, there's a lot of avoidance. So we have avoidance of good communication, we have avoidance of conflict, we have avoidance of commitment, we have avoidance of accountability, and then we also have the avoidance of attention to results. So really, a lot of these dysfunctions of the team could be summed up in the term of avoidance, right? Where there's no trust, so there's an avoidance of trust because, or for whatever reason, there's an avoidance of conflict, there's an avoidance of commitment, there's an avoidance of accountability, and there's an avoidance of results. And those are the dysfunctions of the team, which generally will come from dysfunction from leadership. Now, having talked about what leadership is and then the dysfunctionality that can happen, we'll move to the next slide, Juanita. And we're just going to talk about very quickly some important aspects around leadership, which is the fact is that it is power. We talked about power at the beginning, the sacredness of power, the gift of power, but how it can be used in inappropriate ways. So if we say leadership is influence, leadership is also the use of power. And this will always be part of our human experience, whether we like it or not. Leadership will always be part of our human experience. The use of power and authority will always be part of the human experience because it's how we structure ourselves as a human race. There's always hierarchy, there's always organization. Organizations will always be part of our human experience, even if sometimes they're dysfunctional. But I suppose the challenge And the adventure and the wonderful challenge is, how do we make organizations better? How do we make ourselves better? How do we make our families better? How do we make society better, our communities, and how do we make organizations better? And this happens through how we influence and how we use power. So, and if I were to be in a personal setting, we would talk about, your priorities, your spheres of influence, who you influence. First of all, we influence ourselves. Secondly, we influence, as we talked about, the inner circles, and then the social circles, the professional circles. Okay, now let's quickly step into how I influence. And this is what we call the use of power. There's many ways that we could talk about power. Okay, but these would be the most simplest terms that I could use. Is we can use power as a force, where we force people to do things. We can use power as intimidation, right? It's sort of kind of through fear. Right? Through fear, we can intimidate them. We can pressure them into doing things. We can use power as manipulation, which ends up really using power in a very distorted way, which is very self-serving. How can I use people to meet my own ends, my own needs, and my own goals? Then power also happens in a position, right? So we have formal positions of authority, whether that be in the family and as parents, or whether that be in other organizational settings. The fact is that formal positions of power are important. They naturally have to exist. Now we have people that are in positions of power, and then we have leaders. Hopefully those will coincide, where a person in a position of power is a leader. Doesn't always happen though. Or people confuse that I am in a position of power, so therefore I am a leader. No, maybe you have a formal position of leadership, but it doesn't mean that you are a leader. You are in a formal position of power. So position is a thing of power and influence. And it can be used very well, but it can also be used very inappropriately or in a dysfunctional or toxic manner. Okay, and then, and as we go down the list, we're going from the negative to the more positive, right? Force and intimidation, manipulation, position, exchange. Power. Exchange is also a power. In other words, I do this for you, you do this for me. Money is an exchange of power and influence, right? I give you this money, and then you give me a product or a service, right? And so there's an exchange, and that's an aspect of influence and power over each other. I'll do you a favor, and then at some point I expect that you're going to do a favor for me, right? And then we get to persuasion. And persuasion is I'm not talking about manipulation, because sometimes people can interpret it, or interpret it the same way. Persuasion is just, through the use of reason, through the use of our attraction to, to goals, to a vision and a mission, and to important things, that as human beings, our mind is attracted to certain things. So persuasion is presenting things as a good. This is good, this is beautiful, this is true. And so I feel persuaded. I almost just moved internally to follow or to do this. And then the highest is respect. That because you are who you are and what you represent and how you live, I respect you so much that I follow. And this would be the highest ideal. Obviously we have position that would be a natural position that could be leadership. We have an exchange. We have persuasion, where someone in a position of power and influence is able to help you understand why doing something is good. And this is so important for parenting. This is so important for our own personal lives. This is important in organizations, to help people understand why we do what we do. And if we can't explain why we do what we do, then we need to rethink why we do or what we do. If we can't explain why we do what we do, it's important to rethink what we do and how we do it, to see if there's a better way. So persuasion, and then we go to persuasion, and then we go to respect. Respect is so powerful because it almost becomes automated. Because I respect you, I allow you, I give you permission to have power and influence over me. But you've earned it. It's not because of your position, but because of who you are. And when you have a person who is respected in a position of authority, that's a massive power, but it's also an incredible opportunity of leadership and to really be an agent of transformation. And so these are just very, very briefly, just we kind of brushed over it quickly, just around what influence is and what power is, and how. Then we look at how many people do I influence, and then we want, concluding this thought is, do I want my influence to be positive or do I want my influence to be negative? Generally, we want our influence to be positive. Okay, and so we think, well, how am I positively influencing myself? How am I positively influencing my inner circles, the people that are most important to me? How am I positively influencing my priorities? And how can I positively influence them better? How can I have positive influence and power to reach those ideals, those goals, everything that I want? So let's move on to the next slide, Juanita. And with this, we'll conclude our thoughts for today. Because we talk about leadership as influence, and then then what does it mean to be a person of influence? And this is where I'll put out there very quickly for you. To be a person of influence, but some of this is based on John Maxwell, and I just love it because we talk about what leadership is and being a person of influence, but then the question that needs answering is, well, what does it mean to be a person of influence? How do I do that? It still becomes very vague, and so John Maxwell breaks this down for us. So I'll use a few of my own personal thoughts, but also from John Maxwell, of what it means to be a person of influence. First of all, and it goes back to being and behaving. Being a person of integrity. Because when we are people of integrity, and there's a lot more that we could talk about what it means to be a person of integrity, but I don't want to offend the ignorance of the audience, and I know that people can basically draw their conclusions of what that means to be a person of integrity. But when you are a person of integrity, right, what we talked about before, respect will come your way. When you are a person of integrity, it creates trust. And trust is the glue that keeps people together. What did we talk about when we talked about the dysfunction of the team? We talked about lack of trust. Okay, when you are a person of integrity, trust is something that is born from that. And also respect is a consequence of that. So being a person of influence is being a person of integrity. That I live according to my values, my beliefs, that alignment that we talked about. When I live that alignment, that makes me a person of integrity. Now, integrity is a goal. It's a journey. We can't always say that we can't say I've achieved being a person of integrity. It's something that we do every day of our life. And sometimes we step out of integrity and then we step back into it. This is just part of our human condition. And there's a beauty of that. It's a very dynamic process. But we look to be people of integrity. And I would say that a person of integrity, going back to communication, a person of integrity communicates well, communicates clearly. So anyways, person of influence is person of integrity. Now we go from being more to behaving and attitudes. A person of influence nurtures others. If I nurture my spouse, I nurture my children, I nurture the people I lead. In other words, I feed them. And I'm not talking about just about food, but I feed their spirit, I feed their soul, I feed them as human beings. I help them grow. I nurture my people. I feed them positivity. I feed them goodness. I feed them values. Then, so a person of integrity who nurtures, person of integrity who has faith. I believe in my people. I'm going to go on a sidetrack here when we talk about believing people and listening and understanding, which are the next ones. Is one of when we talk about human beings, and this is very linked to leadership and everything. If there's one of the few things that you might take away from this, if it's this, then this will be golden. It's what people most need in any situation. People most need and want is they need to be seen, they need to be valued, they need to be loved, they need to be appreciated and recognized. And yes, they need feedback. So let's go back over that. People need to be seen, to be valued, to be listened to be loved, to be appreciated, to be recognized, and they need feedback. If we can just do that, in our intimate circles. If we can just do that in our professional circles, and you're leading in a very positive way, you are a positive influence. You're nurturing, you're believing in your people, you're listening to your people, you're looking to understand your people, you're connecting. So the faith, listening, understanding, connecting, it's all in just what I said. That everyone wants to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be valued. They want to be recognized. They want to be appreciated. And they want, even though sometimes it's difficult to take, but we want feedback. We want to know where we stand. And the last part about being a person of influence is we enlarge our people. This is very linked to nurturing, but we grow our people. We want our people to be better. And so we grow our people intentionally. So that's what it means to be a person of influence. And with this, I will conclude. Go to the next slide, Juanita. But I really just want to bring this back, full circle, back to what leadership is. We already talked about leadership as a process of influence of someone over others to reach a common goal. But really, it's a process of influence of being and behaving that really helps people, that enables people to grow and to grow in their personal potential, and then to also reach a common goal. We want to lead better. We want to love better. And I think that when we lead better, we're going to love better, but especially when we love better. When we love better, we're going to lead better. Because love is leadership. And leadership is love. And when we love better, we will live better. Thank you very much.
Absolutely wonderful presentation as always, Matthew, and that's why we just had to have you on the KAPPTOR team. Thank you so much for breaking that open for us. There's so many points that I made here. I made copious notes, and I agree with you absolutely. Being a leader gives us a certain amount of power over people, and you were a priest for 30 years. I was a pastor for 15. I've definitely seen how power can be used in a good and in a negative way. And, especially in a faith based situation, that does a lot of harm. So, love your tagline, live better, love better, lead better. And, you were talking about leading yourself, leading others, especially in the family setting, and leading others in the organization. And then you went over into how leadership and how family settings or groups can be dysfunctional, and how they can get into those traps of avoidance. And that really, to me, as you mentioned, comes down to bad communication. I've seen that transpire before. And if we just work on that communication constantly, it will get better. And it's going to be an arduous task because sometimes some of the members in our family, or some of the members in our organizations, or some of the members in our relationships are more willing to communicate, more willing to express than others. But it is definitely an attainable level of communication that you can reach. You can get there. You just have to press through. So I absolutely love the way you ended this presentation as well. If we love better, we lead better. Thank you so much, Matthew. We appreciate you. I'm going to hand over to Alejandro for his comments and questions, and I'll check the chat in Facebook to see if there are any additional comments or questions.
Thank you, Juanita. Thank you, Alejandro.
No, thank you, Matthew. I mean, your presentation, and you went through such a great exposition of what real leadership is all about. And I just love the fact that when you mention about the greatest gift that you can give to others as a leader is clarity of communication. Is clarity. I mean, if you have clarity, is you are very much ahead of most leaders right now in the world. And so and is the fact of now let me ask you a question, because when you put one of those slides in there, and you had things about influence and influencing, and then the last one was do I want my influence to be positive or negative? Now, do you think that there's any leader or any person, I mean, who would rather his or her influence be negative as opposed to positive?
No, I think consciously we would all say that we want it to be positive, right?
Sure.
Even if we go to any examples of dictatorship throughout the centuries, right? Or I was part of an organization that had a very toxic leader for decades.
Mhm.
Now, would we say that their intention was to have negative influence? No, I think their conscious intention wasn't. But so to answer your question, I think everyone wants to have positive, but some people are very distorted in their views. So when we talk about dictatorships or toxic leaders, they have this distortion around what positivity means, right? And so
Yeah,
because it ends up it's very self-serving. So I want this to
that's right.
be, and that in the end is negative. So this goes back. I think it just leads very naturally into what I said about self-awareness,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
Yeah.
which is the greatest liability. So when we have dictators, when we have toxic leaders, this sort of massive amount of self-awareness that has a huge price. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
excellent
agree.
question. Excellent question and good point,
yeah.
It
Alejandro.
was.
And
You
and
mentioned that there are people with personality disorders, Matthew. I just want to add before Alejandro continues. Sometimes there's people out there that don't realize that they are a narcissist or that they have borderline personality disorder. So that also plays into the toxicity.
Of course. The complexity here is that I didn't talk about charisma, but there's there's so much to talk about, which is why I talk about dysfunctional toxic leadership. Is charisma, so natural gifts that people have. But the downfall to charisma is that oftentimes that people have this. It's like this natural power that you have over people that is used in a distorted way. A lot of charismatic figures end up doing a lot of harm because either they're not aware of the charisma or the influence that it has on people, or it ends up they using it in self-serving ways. But Alejandro, I think we interrupted you. You wanted to say something.
no, I mean, one of the things is, and you mentioned about disruption and when we look in throughout history, we can see leaders, I mean, who were very oppressive and very dictatorial in the ways that they acted. And the question is this, I mean, why do you think that those leaders they lasted a long time being like that, and they were not taken down much sooner by because when you create that kind of a toxicity culture and environment, do you think that that's contagious and everybody then becomes like that? And that's why they say, okay, I mean, let's keep with this guy or this girl, I mean, in leadership. But uh, I'm I would imagine that if you are in when you walk into an organization and you can really feel like a toxic culture, why is it that that leadership is still in place?
Right. It is fascinating, but it's what we would call the toxic triangle, without getting too much into it. But it's a leader with those traits that we've already talked about. It's a
Yeah.
certain type of follower that enables a toxic leader to be toxic. And usually I use two words that begin with C: compliant people or colluders. Okay, in other words, sort of like this weaker personality that they prefer just to comply and to go along because they find security in this leader that has charisma or that has clarity, even if they're toxic. It's safer and it's just easier. So complying and colluders, the people that have this, well, I'm going to play the game because I get something out of it too. So when you have these two types of followers, of compliers and colluders, and then you have a context that has been built to protect this dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about whether there's no accountability or whether it's sort of a lot of people, they create this sense of it's us against them. and that makes everyone come together. Okay, so and then it's also the sense of insecurity. When we create instability and security, then it makes everybody dependent on me as the leader. And so then I can just continue to protect this environment. Now so those are all the elements that have to kind of come together for that to happen. It doesn't. So in other words, it doesn't happen. It happens over time. It happens when these elements come into play. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yes, definitely. Yes, sure. Thank you so very much.
And that can happen in organizations, that can happen in countries. If we look at dictatorships, if we look at communism, if we look at Nazism, if we look at other countries that have suffered from some dictatorship, if we look at organization that I was part of for 30 years, right? And so you become very blinded to these dynamics because you become part of the system. And that's how, so to answer your question, how can it last so long? Because you become, since it's sort of a brainwashing process. And so you become blind to so many aspects to it. And so you become part of it. And it becomes, this is what I know, this is what's natural. And so only when being part of that system, I began to notice things over time, but I noticed a lot more when I stepped away. But anyways, there's a lot more we can talk about. That's a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I think we should delve into that. Yeah.
Okay.
We should definitely, Alejandro, delve into that with Matthew at another point in time, because that's exactly the same experience I had. You notice a few things along the way. You don't realize that you're being indoctrinated. You don't realize that you're being brainwashed. But the moment that you completely sever those ties, then you have these aha moments, and it's an experience. It's really an experience, but it's a character building experience. So in the end, we learn our lesson and we utilize what we've seen in ourselves and in others in a positive way. So Matthew, you did a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. You are in Mexico. Alejandro is in Georgia. I'm in South Africa. We are so blessed to be in this room with you. And thank you. We appreciate you. Have a beautiful rest of your Saturday.
Thank you. Likewise to both of you. Let's make space now for Laura.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Juanita. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Matthew, for your willingness and your time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Laura, welcome, Laura. I am going to switch my networks quickly, and I'm going to be back, and I'm going to introduce you, my sweet friend. We are so excited to have you here. You look so beautiful, may we just say.
So please excuse me. To be here.
Yay!
Can you hear me?
I
was having trouble with my internet. Can you guys hear me pretty good?
Yes,
I can hear you. Alejandro, can you hear? Okay, wonderful.
I can. Yeah, sure. Yes.
Good. Good. Laura and I had a great conversation Messenger, so we're so excited to have her here. I know she's been following along for the other 2 days as well, so I was excited to hear that. And I'm going to be back now, Alejandro, to introduce Laura. But you and Laura just have a discussion on what Matthew just presented. Stay in the room here to keep it open. I'll be back shortly.
Okay, good.
Excellent.
We're not live, right?
Yes.
Alejandro,
right. Don't get lost.
How are you doing?
Live.
All right. Awesome. How are you doing?
Doing fine. How are you, Laura? It's so good to connect with you. Yes. Looking forward, to hearing your wisdom.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the honor. It's just a privilege to be here. And I have been taking little notes on certain speakers when I can. It's my husband's birthday weekend. And so, but I promise you, we have got to get together next 2 weeks. We've got to make the time to do that. We're just like an hour away. So, you know what I mean? But anyways. Right. Yeah. So today, today I wanted to, at the end, promote my membership, and that's the Prosper and Flourish Community Membership. So I want to definitely do that. I have some
Flourish.
Yeah, Prosper with an N, Prosper and Flourish. I gave Juanita the link, but I want to give everybody a lead magnet that adds value. And then I want to tell everybody about my group. But I have some t-shirts to show, like, look, I couldn't find one to fit me. I'm like, darn, I meant to wear it. But, one of those things, you didn't clean it in time. So how are you doing this morning?
Doing fine, doing fine. Yes, it's day 3 of the conference, and it's been a great experience. I mean, it's like I always say the same thing. I mean, we start on day 1, and then we begin to gather momentum, and then day 3 shows very quickly, and then that's the end of the conference. And
I know, crazy.
Where does time go? But it's always great. And we are almost in September. Can you believe it, that another year is finally coming to an end? My goodness.
I know. I have so much to do, Alejandro. Don't rush me. I have so much to do this year. So much. You do too. But yeah, this is your 3rd one, and you guys have been doing an awesome job. Truly an awesome job.
How are you finding, because I mean, you are very active in the Connected Leaders Academy. So how is that going?
It's going good. I try to meet with 2 or 3 a week, and just really connecting. And I probably will use some of those speakers on my platform that I'm going to do a live summit conference in January, February. So I got to get it going. It's going to, I'm sorry, it's not going to be live. It's going to be virtual. So, so I got to start promoting it here in the next couple of months. But yeah, I love it. And I've been on some podcasting and had quite a few in my group interviewing them. So yeah.
Excellent. I mean, is that going to be a summit on a particular topic, or a theme that you have in mind?
You know what? That's the one thing that I have to get narrow in. I have a couple of different things, but I haven't narrowed it in. It's going to be something about leadership. It's going to be something about the woman online entrepreneur. So it's definitely going to be something like that. Leadership, online woman entrepreneur, and including some faith stuff. So I just don't have the title yet. I'm trying to get through this week. I had a lot going on. I had 3 speaking things, and I'm just getting through this, my husband's birthday. And then next week is a whole new week to start narrowing and finding out what topics. So I've already got a couple of speakers already. So yeah. Awesome.
Excellent. Is that going to be, geared, to women or no?
It is going to be, yes, it's going to be geared to women. I'll have women speakers and geared to women. Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Excellent.
All right. Well, like I said,
I'm back. Waiting.
What?
Yeah. I said I'm back. Thank you so much for waiting.
Oh, you are so worth it. So thank you
You
guys.
are welcome.
Yes. All right. I'm going to turn my phone. I don't want it to beep, so I just needed to make sure that everything is working okay. Like I said, I had trouble.
So Janita, just go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Okay, Laura, is your internet connection okay? Are you good?
Yes, as long as you don't see me beeping in and out, just for a few seconds, you hear me talking, I'm not going in and out, I'm good.
Okay, wonderful. Let me know in the private chat if you need. Okay. We'll keep the conversation going. Let me read your amazing bio.
Okay.
Laura White, our beautiful speaker today, she's an inspirational speaker, a business strategist, and life coach. She's also a leadership coach, speaker, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. And she's the author of 2 books. For the past 12 years as a speaker, business and life coach, and life skills expert, Laura has encouraged, equipped, and empowered women to make more money online and to be more successful. Laura's passionate approach to coaching is the following: empowers you to discover your purpose, why, and what in life, moves you beyond your limiting beliefs to a winning mindset, helps women in business to excel and create more success, and creates leaders to achieve their maximum potential and become greater leaders. Through her speaking, books, and coaching, Laura equips others to embrace success, deal with change, overcome obstacles and become more of an influencer. She resides in Atlanta, Georgia, with her husband of 37 years, and she's been featured on ABC Action News TV and several other TV stations, radio stations, magazines, stages, summits, and conferences. She offers the following services: individual coaching, a membership group, speaking, and her online business growth academy, all custom tailored to suit the needs of clients and audiences. Well, we are very excited to have you here, my dear friend. Take it away, please.
Oh, thank you guys. Juanita and it's been absolutely wonderful. So honored to be a part of this and allowing me to add value to the community. But I just want to say this. I've got to hear some of the speakers, and it's just been phenomenal, literally phenomenal. The value that you bring, and everybody bringing tools that you can implement in your business right now has definitely been something that not only helped me. I'm like writing notes, taking notes and using that. And I'm like, oh gosh, I get to use that. So really, really a lot of value. So I really appreciate that. So welcome everyone, whether you're listening now or listening in the replay. I just want to say welcome. My heart here is to add value to you. My topic today is strategies for growth and an impact for online entrepreneurs. But if I may have the opportunity, I'd love to share how I got started and why I do what I do. First of all, I want to share with you that I was raised in a family of 9. I could tell you growing up, it was never a dull moment. There was chaos going everywhere. And there were so many things happening at all time because every one of us were in sports. My mom was a PE teacher, so we learned a lot about that. But the reason I'm sharing this with you and why this has a lot to do with who I am in my talk is because I learned a lot in being raised in a family. I can't even imagine, to this day, it just strikes me like that all 7 kids were raised in the same family by the same parents, and we all have such different personalities and behaviors. And so I learned at an early age how to communicate, connect with others in the family. With Bobby, I had to be really detailed before he made any kind of decision. So I had to make sure I came up with my facts. I had to talk to my other brother, John, and I had to make sure that I was persuasive, because he's like, oh, I don't make any decisions. I have to think about it. I mean, I have to do this and that. And I'm thinking, so I had to make sure that I had all my facts. And then I had a brother that was just like, if it wasn't fun, I'm not doing it. So I had to make sure that I brought in my personality and you could do it. We're going to have so much fun. And I noticed that each person, I had to communicate in a different way to be able to reach their personality and behavior. But it worked because I was able to persuade and I was able to talk to them. And it was so much fun growing up. There was so much things to do that we didn't need any neighbors. We didn't need any friends. We had our own basketball team in the backyard. We had our own kickball in the front yard. It was just so much fun. But again, I learned a lot about really talking, and I really learned about how to get along with different atmospheres and different personalities. So I said that to say this, that growing up was fun, but I learned a lot also because I was the oldest daughter and the middle child. And when I first was growing up and there was, some things happening in the house, I had some fear and I was timid and stuff, but something happened to me. And that's another whole story in middle school, and everything changed. And I realized that everybody was coming to me for help. They were coming to me for solving problems. And I loved it because I figured out my why is really contributing to help people with their lives and helping them solve and helping them to do better. It's contributing to make their life better. And so with that, I noticed that when things change, everybody was coming to me. My siblings were coming to me for this. Hey, we're fighting. Can you help us get out of it? Oh, can you help me do my paper? Can you help me do this? Can you help me figure out why my girlfriend's acting like this? And it was just all these things happening. And that's where I learned a lot. I left home. I went to college, and after college, I'm like, most people say, now what do I do? So I went into sales. And when I went into sales, it became so easy. I could tell, I wanted to have a pen because I was going to say, I can sell you this pen. I just learned at an early age growing up about really how to communicate, to sell, communicate, to talk and give the information that they need, not what I want to deliver, but what they want to hear. And so I was in the top 3 in all the companies I was in, and the few companies I was in. But the last one was when I was really making the money, and I had no intention on leaving. I had been there 13 years, and the sales were coming great. And I wanted to share a couple things why. Because what I did is I studied the top people in sales. I studied what they did, and then I put it in my own version, my own personality, and sold. And when I started making all these sales and started being successful and the top salesperson, people started coming to me and they're saying, how are you getting all these sales? How are you doing this? Well, first of all, I am faith-based. So I'm like, well, I talk to God and I ask him what I need and what I want. That's one thing. But the second thing is I'm like, well, a couple of things is I don't take no for an answer. I mean, if they say no, that's because they don't understand, they're scared, or they don't know enough to make an education decision. So I would say, okay, well, and then I would keep talking. And if they say no and they had to go, okay, great, honest. Well, you know what? I've got some more material for you, and I would call back. And so I kept talking to them. I kept sharing information to them, and they kept getting comfortable and they kept warming up. And in that presentation that I would do for each client, I would overcome 7 or 8 no's, because people, they have to know, like, and trust you, which I'm going to talk about later. But sometimes in those sales, people just don't understand. They don't understand what you're saying, or they don't understand what that you're going to provide for them. So they just say no, you know? So that's one of them that I would just keep talking, answering their questions. And by that time, they're saying yes. The other thing is I told the people that were asking me, like, how are you making all these sales? I'm like, well, I said, if they can't talk, or if it's not a good time, I don't take it as a no. I keep calling back. And there'd be times after a year that I would come, hey, just want to see how you're doing. How's mom doing? You know, in the products that I offered. Then they would say, no, not right now, not right now. And then I would call back again. They said no, they didn't say no. They said just no, not right now, call back. You know, they call back, because sometimes people say that because they don't want to really say no and hurt your feelings. So they go, oh no, call back. But I would keep calling back. After a year, I'd had people say, okay, Laura, you're so persistent. Okay, go ahead, sign me up. Or it was only a handful of people that would say, you know what? Please take me off your list. I go, you know what? Thank you for telling me. I will take you off the list. But until they say no, I was persistent. So in the sales and staying in that, I had wanted to stay there until I was 65 years old. I had no intention of leaving. It was safe. It was familiar, but God had a different plan. And God was trying to get me out of there, but I did not want to, because it was safe and familiar. He kept stirring and taking this education. The first certificate I got was health. And then I started getting this certificate and that certificate. And I was hungry for that. And I knew that I was destined for more. But again, no, it's too good. 6 figures 17 years ago was really good money. I'm not leaving. But he got my attention. Something happened in the company. The the building became sick. I started getting sick a lot, and I just had to go. And I gave my 2 weeks notice. I came home and told my husband. He goes, what? Oh my gosh, what? Like freaking out because all the money that I was making. And I'm like, I can't take it. But as soon as I said goodbye, the next day, everything started opening up for me for coaching. I mean, things in the mail, the TV, people were talking about it. I'm like, what is this coaching thing? And I started looking into it. I'm like, wait a second. I've already been doing this. I've already been mentoring people in my home with my brothers and sisters. I've already been coaching and mentoring people at my work because they could have to ask me. And I don't believe in keeping secrets. I believe if I can help someone and contribute to make their life easier and better, I'm all for it. So I always gave all my secrets away. I didn't care. Like, it doesn't matter. There's lots of people out there that need help. But I said no. And when I accepted coaching and I realized that I'd already been doing it in my family, at my work, at my church, my husband and I were hosting a life group for 10 years. I said, this is what I need to do. So I became a life coach. And let me tell you, it took years. I still was not making that kind of money. And I struggled. And I tell people I was in the wilderness for 3 years. And I was taking courses and taking free stuff and paying for stuff. And I just says, what is going on? And I sat in my bed and I was just crying and I'm going, God, why is this so hard? Why? You wanted me to be, I know without a shadow of a doubt that you wanted me to be a coach. And he said, I wanted you to hear the pain of women that have a calling. They have a message. They have a desire that's something that they came through, that they want to help people. And I wanted you to feel their pain, that they want to so bad, but they don't know how to do the online business. And I'm like, okay, this isn't fun. I don't like this. I get the message. I'm moving on. And that is when everything changed. I paid the price for a good coach and things started changing. And in that changing, I started getting people online asking me, how are you growing? Where are you getting your clients? And my coach says, well, you always go where your avatar wants you. And if they're asking you, how are you growing your business? Why don't you be a business strategist? So that's how I became a business strategist and a life coach, because I don't believe that you can do one without the other. Can't do life without business, business without life. But so many people would come to me and they're like, I'm stuck, Laura. I want to make more money, but I don't know how to. And with that moment, I would find out that it was because of communication. It was because they're limiting minds, their mindset, their limiting beliefs and their mindset. And that's where I got started. So that led me to today. So today I'm going to talk to you about my 4 C's, strategies of how to grow and impact for online entrepreneurs. The 4 C's are the 4 S's, 4 C's. The 4 S's are seen, serve, sell, and support. And this is for coaches, consultants, course creators, service providers, or online entrepreneurs. But if you want to grow and you want to have more of an impact, you want to make more money, you want to leave a legacy, then this is for you. So let's start with the first one, and that is seen. How can you be seen? It's all about your messaging. And in that messaging, I want to let you know that that is 3 components. If you want to be seen, you have to get very crystal clear on your message, especially using it in social media or emails or when you speak. But the first thing is, do you truly know your niche? Because there's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of people that are confused. And I don't care if you're making 6 or 7 figures. Sometimes people just they need more clarification. So people go, well, how do I know what my niche is? Well, your niche is your passion, your purpose. What is your why? That's why I love using the why assessment, because it really helps you figure out your why, your what, and your how. But when you know what your strengths are, you know what motivates you and drives you, what gets you up in the morning, what legacy, what mission do you have? Because that's your niche. And I want to give you a challenge for those who are starting out or those who've been around for 5 years. I want you to ask 3 to 5 people, what am I good at? What do I solve? What kind of problems do you see me solving all the time? What do you see me helping people with? Because that's going to be your niche. The other one is your avatar. your avatar, when you know crystal clear your avatar. Well, first of all, before I say the avatar, I wanted to say something that people usually always hear is the riches are in the niches. And that's why I'm very clear and help my clients getting very clear on your niche and your avatar, because that's going to be making your message clear. But let's go to the avatar now. So the avatar is, do you really know your avatar? Do you know, what sex they are? What age? Do they have a family? Are their kids young? Are they middle school? Are they college? Or are they out of the house? What is your avatar? And with your avatar is, do you know, once you have like, okay, yeah, okay, women, okay, yeah, the age, I know that. But do you know their biggest obstacle, their struggle? Do you know what's their biggest fear? Because sometimes people will have fear that I'm fear of failing, but sometimes I'm fear of really making it big and having to get this big team. And I don't want to do that. So they have different fears, but what's their anxiety? What keeps them up at night? That's huge. And with that avatar is finding out what makes them alive, what makes them tick. And do you know where they shop? Do you know what they like to do for hobbies? Do you know everything about them? And when you know that, then they're going to say, oh my gosh, Laura gets me. She reads my mind. Oh my gosh, is she reading my diary? I mean, literally, I've had people say that going, I just wrote that in my diary today, or my journal. I should say journal nowadays. They will say those things. And that's what you want to have them say, is when your message is crystal clear. I had a client that was just struggling, and she says, I know for sure my niche, but I really need help getting clarification on all these things. And I'm like, okay, well, what is it that you're struggling? And I find it out. And then I help her. And then she starts getting clients. I had one that in the niche, she had said, no, I love corporate and I love doing youth. But that's two different avatars, and you're confused on the ages and stuff. And she's like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I tried telling her. She kept going for 6 months. She came back and she goes, okay, it's not working. I'm not making the money. Okay, what do you want to choose? She goes, I don't know. Well, what's your passion? What do you love? And she's like, oh my gosh. She says, I have kids coming in I have all these kids that are my kids. And then all these kids come in and I love helping them. I'm going to go with the kids. As soon as she decided right then and there, literally the next week, she got a client. And then she got another client. I mean, like boom, boom, right away. 3 clients right away, because her messaging changed immediately. Every day she was posting, and she got very clear on that. So that's what you want to know. I know in my avatar, it's faith-based women, online entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, course creators between 45 and 55, and they want to leave a legacy, but they want to make more money to help their family and help with their kids' education and be able to travel the way they want. Okay, but that's really narrow. But do I help other people? Yes. In my course, I have a 26-year-old and I have a 17-year-old. But in my messaging, I'm very clear so they can say, she's reading my diary. I even know what lipstick they wear. No, just joking. Wanted to see if you were listening. So let's go to the next one about getting your message clear. It's all about social media. Social media is a huge aspect of what I help with. It's not everything, but social media is important. And the first thing I want to say about social media is your platform. Do you know where your avatar is? Because you're going to have one platform where most of them are. Mine is Facebook. But like, well, how do you find out? Like, I'm all over the place. Well, I'm telling you right now, I was between my niche, my avatar, my social media, I was all over the place. When people called me, they're like, oh, can you help me with your marriage? I'm like, at that time, like, I've been married for 20 years. Yes, I can help you with your marriage. And right then and there, I'm making the program. I'm just going to be real with you today. Seriously real with you and authentic. I would have someone call me, hey, can you help me with my teenager? I'm like, oh, absolutely. I helped raise my 2 sisters. And I would make up all these programs, have all this thing, working 12 hours a day, posting on every kind of platform. I was all over the place. I was exhausted working 12 hours a day. But when I got that coach and I was serious, that's when everything changed, because I got very clear on who my avatar was, what my niche was, and that's what the game changer was for me. But in my social media, they also saw it. So in the social media, I found out that Facebook was my platform. So my thing to you is, what I want to ask you is, do you know your platform? How do you know? Well, I did, and I highly recommend you do this. Do surveys, do polls, ask questions. And here's another one about social media is do the insights. The insights you can find out on your Facebook page, your Facebook group, on Instagram. Look at the insights. If you know what it is, go to Google. Insights will tell you everything. It told me where they were at. It told me what age. It told me what time they like to watch. They told me what posts they wanted. It told me everything I needed to do. And that right there helped me to figure out how to do this. I looked at my algorithm. I looked at my analytics. I did data, all that to get very, very clear, because I want people to say, Laura gets me. She understands me. She's my gal. I want to work with her, right? There's one more thing about social media is use and leverage other people's platforms. I say leverage the pros. That's my saying. So leverage the pros is, I always tell my clients to get 3 to 5 people that do exactly what you do and go into their communities. Now, you're not going to stalk them. You're not going to do certain things because you're going to get in Facebook jail. But the key thing is you start having conversations, start adding value into those communities. I believe in paying for other services and memberships, because that's where your people are. That is where you are going to gain not only knowledge, information, but you're going to gain clients, because not everybody who follows the pros go with them. They might not register everything with them. There might not be their person. So they are going to maybe follow you and be interested in what you have. So leverage the pros. Why? Because they've already done the ads. They've already done the research. They've already put everything into it. So take that, because I teach women how to grow their business organically without using ads. And that is one of the ways is leveraging. And that is important. So also I teach social media that I have personally, and so my clients have made 5 to 10K on one post, because there's strategies on how to do this. There's strategies on how I use quite a bit is the Facebook background, the colors they give you. And I will have a question or a statement that gets all the people who respond are my avatar. Boom. I am now talking to them on Facebook, on Facebook Messenger or Instagram, because those are my 2 major platforms, and I'm having conversations with them. I presented it and boom, I made 10K in a couple weeks. Now, the other thing that you want to do is with the social media is you also want to make sure that you leverage what Facebook gives you. Facebook gives you a lot of things to use marketing and to be able to use your platform to be able to promote yourself. So Juanita is going to give you a link to be able to get 5 tips on how to change your Facebook profile. And you're thinking, oh, that's nothing. Oh, no. That is a game changer. Because when I started changing all the things that Facebook allows us to do, and I took advantage of that prime real estate marketing kind of a thing, that changed the game for me, because of the fact that I told people who I am, who I serve, and how I serve them. But I'll give you one tip right now, and the thing that Juanita is going to share with us later. That I gave her. One is have a call to action on every single post. I've been doing that for so long, because people want to be part of the community. People want to be a part of something. And so if you're adding value all the time and you are giving testimonies and you're giving strategies and tips and tools and hacks and all that kind of good stuff, they're going to keep following you and they're going to respond and they want to be part of that. And so I have, with my personal, if I have someone that I'm working with, that I'm going to help them, but I'm going to get into that with you later. But with the social media is if that's not working, if they want to know more about me, I'll get my tongue straight here. I will add them to my Facebook group, but I'll share a little bit more with that later. So take advantage of the social media and leverage it. Now, my second S is serve. Are you serving your people? How are you serving? How are you delivering it? I always believe that you should have one great signature program or membership that you do and get people interested in that. So serve them well and having that offer. But serving them also is really giving them transformation, giving them solutions, results of what you offer. And that's important about serving. Let me drink some water real quick. Hold on. So serving is offering them something that they're going to get results and transformation. And the reason I say that is because so many people have a program and they don't know what they offer for results. So if you get crystal clear on your how you serve them and what the results they're going to get, they're more likely to sign up because they know that they are going to get this result. Now, the other thing I love about serving is even if it's for 10 minutes, I will solve one of your problems. Now watch, I'll probably get tons of calls. I do, because that's who I am. I want to serve you and I want to help you. But what I want to share with you is when you jump on a call with someone, the thing that I want to share with you is really providing them some kind of transformation or results, because when you talk to someone, they're like, oh, okay, she's going to help me. So it really, changes the atmosphere. So I had one client, and she was, she had her program, but she was kind of stuck about really how to serving and, talking about how to go back and really adding value, but never taking no for the first time, and really helping her to strategically plan how she serves, what that looks like, what are the steps to do it. She went to 2.5 million in contracts in 4 weeks because she took the strategies of getting clear on her niche, getting clear on her avatar, getting clear on what she offered and the service that she provided. She did that. And it was such a reward to hear, and light bulbs going off, going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is so clear now that why I was struggling for so long. And those are the stories we as coaches love to hear. So serve your customers well. Now, the other thing that I want to share with you is the sell. Sell. So the sell is all about the like, the know, and the how. Meaning, John Maxwell says that it's always been embedded in my brain about how he says people have to know, like, and trust you before they buy any program. They just do. And so if they're getting to know and you want to sell them something, these are the 3 things that I highly recommend what to do. So liking them or knowing them first is getting to know them. So when you jump on a call, remember when I told you always add value, but I want to add something else. Is I want you to either compliment them or I want you to find common ground. Those 2 things really helped me to not only talk to more people, but stay on the phone call longer. Because when you're like, oh, do you have 10 minutes? I want to jump on and I want to add value to you. They're like, Laura's going to push her sales. She's going to really push this. I don't really know. But if you start off the conversation complimenting them, so if I get a chance and I really want to, have a good conversation, I'm going to go their social media and I'm going to learn about them. I'm going to take that. Takes literally 1 or 2 minutes. I'm going to go on there and I'm going to see something I can compliment them. Maybe they just celebrated 25 years. Maybe they won an award for speaking. Maybe their kids just celebrated this. I will always compliment them on something, or I'll find common ground. Oh, I see that you go hiking. I just moved to Georgia so I can go hiking more. That's what you want to share. And you will see in their body language, because another one of my great coaches and mentors is John Maxwell. And he always says that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so when I've taken the time to get to know them a little bit more and I made a compliment or found common ground, you could actually see, as John Maxwell says, body language change, because body language speaks louder than any words you can ever say. So when I ask those questions, you could actually see them go, they're relaxed, because they're like, okay, I thought Laura was going to jump on a call, like sell me a whole bunch of stuff. Well, maybe my intention might be that, but I really want to get to know them as an individual, and I want to really add value, but I also want to make that compliment and find common ground. So that's a key component about selling, is always, always, always add value, and always make sure that you let them know that you know them and you want to get to know them. Even if people start off and say, Laura, tell me about you. And I go, you know what? Forget about me. I am so intrigued to know about you. I am so intrigued to know more about you. They're like, okay. And then they end up talking about themselves. And I don't care if I don't say anything about myself in that 10 minutes or the 30 minutes that I jump on call. I want them to know that I cared about them, because I guarantee that's going to be a solid person when I go back and talk to them again. So some coaches, some people might do that. Some people don't. There are different varieties. If I've already had a conversation about a bunch of things on Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger, and I already pretty much know a lot of stuff, then yes, then I'm going to get to the point. But if not, and it's a cold call and someone introduced me, I'm going to make sure that I really make that a comparison to do. So in that, I also want to make sure that not only in the know is really complimenting them, really getting to know them. That's key. The other one is like, and I want to like them. They want to like me. They want to get to know me. Most time they're not going to go and buy a $20,000 program if you just hopped on something that you did. So in that like a free workshop, and that's where you're going to get them to like you more, is when you do either that free workshop, that free seminar, that free intensive, or maybe it's $50 or less, like a 27 or 47 different program. Now they know you. Now they're getting to like you more. And that is something that you want to do. I always tell my clients, do something every month, something free, something that you add value, so they can hear you talk. They can hear you add to them. And that's where they're going to like you more, know you more, and that's where they're going to trust you, which now we are going to go into trust. And trust is important, because that's where, when they know and like you, now they're more likely to pay the money, or they trust you to buy your offer. Those are the steps to take to know, like, and trust, so you can sell more. So I have lots and lots of things that I share with my, in that the 30 years of sales that I have been doing, I've learned a lot, because not only did I get coaches and programs, but I read a lot and went to conferences and really learned a lot. Even when I was within the corporate world, really learning about sales is really the strategies of how to do it. So I teach my clients, what do you say next? What do you say in the 10-minute call? What do you say in the 30-minute call? How do you close them? How do you get them to know, like, and trust you? That's all in the selling process. Now let's talk about the 4S, and that is all about support. And I am so big about support, because that's why I developed my membership called the Prosper and Flourish Community Membership. Sorry, guys, it's all for women. But, not only do I love to contribute to help people better, but I wanted to really help women, because I wanted to build a culture in my support, in my membership, in my community, because I wanted them to come without makeup. I wanted to come with their child on their lap. I wanted to add value to them and help them to learn and grow and scale. So I built, and I believe in support. Number one is get a coach. I don't believe everybody needs a counselor, but I believe everybody needs a coach. And so I have two seven-figure coaches, and coaches will help you to understand your blind spots. They'll motivate you. They'll promote you. They'll drive you to get results. They will help you make a difference in you. They actually will start believing in you more than you believe in yourself. And that's what I love about coaches. But coaches do a lot of things. Those are just the main ones, because that's where I had some blind spots and I needed to get rid of them. And I've had a lot of people say, I do that. I usually say for one solid week, when I talk about support and getting coaches, I say for one solid week, like, because a lot of times, people aren't believing that they're the experts. They're not believing that they can do it. Oh, people aren't going to pay $5,000 for me, all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, for 1 week, I want you to write down everything that you think. And, like every time that you have a negative thought or you have you say something negative, I want you to write it down, only because I want you to understand what you're doing. And after a week, they're like, what? I can't believe how negative I'm talking about myself. I can't believe how much I'm thinking about this. And it's awareness, because you can't be intentional until you're aware. So support is getting a coach. The next one is building that community and that networking. I'm totally big on networking. I have several networks that I belong to, and I built my own because I want that to be a community where we support each other. We are cheering each other on when we win, because we want everybody, not because, oh, they're doing good, I'm not doing anything, I'm not going to say yay. No, we're like, woo, yay, supporting them. We add value. We're masterminding. We have hot seats in my community. And this is where the secret sauce is. I call it the networking, because be with people that are 2 steps better than you. Be with like-minded community that are there to help you and support you, but they're there to challenge you too. Believe it. If they're true friends and you build that deep connection, they're like, hey, Laura, why don't you do this? And then they're giving you tips. And there are people for the last year that I've had not my membership, because that's new this year, but when I used to have networking and we'd all meet and stuff, they used to say, Laura, nobody has this secret sauce that you offer. And you'll have to call me to get that secret sauce. But they come every time because they want all that information that I give. So sometimes I have speakers, sometimes I will coach, and then we go into member masterminding and hot seats. But networking is where you're going to also, besides social media, going to grow your platform, because this is where you collaborate with others, you partner with others, and that you're doing things with others. I remember 2 girls got together and they're like, hey, we do the same thing. Let's get together. They got together and they did a live workshop for the day together. It's a game changer, because you're sharing each other's emails and you're growing. So community and network is huge. And I love helping them. I bring in expert speakers that are already making it, already the pros. They come in to share their expertise. And then in the Prosper and Flourish community, we have prayer night. We also have Q&A time. And we also have other speakers that will come in and teach us about a certain topic. But we're networking. We have a community, a culture where we're growing and we're doing the things together, because we all want the same thing. We want to make more. We want to leave a legacy. We want to make a difference. And so with the 5 tips, I hope that you'll gain a lot from there. I hope that I gave you a lot of good information. I do want to share that I do have a couple other things that I want to share. I also have a couple books. This is my one book, The Prosperous Leader, Walking in the Wisdom of God. And I did this because I'm all about leaderships, and I want you to grow, and I want you to be fed every single day. And then I'm also a book of the Masters of Marriages. And this is an anthology that I did because when someone found out how long I was married, and I've been married for 37 years, they're like, oh, I want your expertise. I want your expertise. So you can get those both on Amazon. Actually, the Master of Marriages, this is a devotion of 30 authors, and they call it this, their secret sauce of how they keep their marriage alive and well. And a lot of them have been married a long time. So if you want that, you have to notify me. But this book you can get on Amazon, or you can notify me also. And then I also have t-shirts, because this is the prosperous and I gotta see this, and flourish women. And then I also have my book, The Prosperous Leader. So I have a couple of things that I have going on, but I hope again that I added value. The thing is, if you want to grow and have an impact, make sure your messaging is right to be seen. Make sure that you are serving the people that are following you. Make sure you know how to sell them and get support. Be in there. So God bless you all. I really appreciate being here. And I am going to let Juanita take it over from here. And it has been a pleasure being with you guys. Love, love, love to hear from you. My email is laura@laurawhite360.com. It's so easy. laura@laurawhite360.com. Call me. I'd love to have a chat with you, and I'd love to add value and give you a result. All righty.
Thank you so much, Laura. Absolutely loved your presentation. And, you really speak to the heart of the people. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Wanting to put that on the cap.
Thank you so much, Laura, for your beautiful presentation. Absolutely love learning from you. And, the way that you just connect to those people on soul level, that's a very important attribute that an entrepreneur has to have. And I love the fact that you talked about how you connected with your siblings. You made, for the one sibling, you made everything exciting.
You're going in and
other
out.
Sibling. Can you hear me, Alejandro? I can't hear you. I think you might be muted.
Alejandro, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear both of you. Yes.
Okay. So it was just very interesting to note how you connected with your siblings, and that you made some things you made exciting for the one to connect with that sibling. Some things you had to explain all the details to connect with the other sibling. Other one you made fun, the event fun. And it's very important that in communication we are able to communicate with people on their level, and also to this speak the things that really interest them. And I want to put focus on the link that you've provided us here. Tell us some more about the link that I posted here that you sent to me. What is this link all about? Can you hear me yet? Can you hear Alejandro?
I can hear you.
Okay, I think maybe Laura's signal is maybe going in and out, but she sent this link, guys. So go to this link. She sent this link especially for the KAPPTOR connection attendees. So make sure you press this link, connect with her, and follow her. And I also put on her social media platforms here. Make sure you've got the recording. This is streaming live, so it will be on my page still. Make sure you connect with her. Anything that you want to add, Alejandro?
No, I just want to say thank you so very much, Laura, for that powerful presentation. I'm going to remember those 4 S's: seen, serve, sell, and support. And thank you so very much. For those. Great information.
You are so welcome.
Absolutely. There we go. Can you hear us now? Are you back? Okay, wonderful. So thank you so much to our wonderful friend Laura. We appreciate you. And with that, we have come to our first break. So we are going to take a lunch break now, and we will be back. I believe, Alejandro, what time will we be back? Let's just make sure of
we'll be
the
back
right
at
time.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So see you guys. Enjoy your break, and Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Bye, Laura.
Bye bye. Bye bye, Laura.